Parents frequently find themselves searching for the perfect educational environment for their child. And when you have a child who thinks and learns differently, you may also look for environments where your child has access to interventions that address their unique needs, a program that incorporates clinical support, helps your child develop social emotional learning and adaptive functioning skills, and provides them with a supportive community of educators and peers. For some students, that could mean a residential or boarding program where they live and learn in the same place. Sara Jackson is joining me today to discuss boarding programs for neurodivergent youth. Sara is a licensed clinical social worker and coordinator of the middle school, high school boarding program at Riverview School.
Millions of kids struggle with learning, processing, and social emotional difficulties. These challenges interfere with their ability to reach their full potential. Dr. Karen Wilson is here to help. Her extensive background in pediatric neuropsychology and higher education have prepared her for this unique mission. Listen as she delivers content to inform, educate, and empower parents and educators. This will enable you to identify challenges that kids face and get them on the road to achieving their full potential. This is Diverse Thinking, Different Learning by Child Nexus.
Hi, Sara. Thanks so much for joining me today.
I'm happy to be here.
I'm really happy that you're here too, because we work with kids who think and learn differently, and the question about what is the best type of learning environment for my child comes up often, and there are so many options for parents. And I really appreciate you being here to discuss the residential learning program option, what that looks like, or boarding schools. And parents will often ask about that as an option. Is that right for my child? And I know that a boarding school is a school where students live within the school premises while being given formal instruction. But I know it's more than that. And that's why you're here to kind of explain a little bit about, what does that mean to have a residential learning program or a boarding school? So let's start there.
Absolutely. So I think a boarding school is special in that the student is getting their full academic programming, just like you would expect anywhere else. But we really have like that 24-hour-a-day learning, if that's what a student needs. So everything is integrated, that they have their academic program, but then they have their life after school that is all intentionally programmed as well. So they're with other students, they have activities they can participate in. They're using skills they learned during the school day and transferring that into some real life situations, whether that's on the boarding school's campus or out in the community. So it takes the learning that had been happening in just a small piece of their day and really extends it for us from like 6:30 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night.
Wow. Okay. That really is helpful because, again, that additional time that a student is spending after formal instruction hours is important too. And it sounds like it's part of the residential experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's designed to provide what the student needs beyond the academic day. So I know some students, they struggle to find the social piece, or they might struggle to find activities that they can participate in. So that is all just built right into the program, so that students have a dorm that they're living in and needing to negotiate. How do you live with other people? How do you compromise within a shared living setting? How do you make friends? So there's a lot of time that isn't available just in a regular length school day to be able to build all of those skills as well.
It seems that boarding school provides, like you were saying, a 24-hour learning experience, but it also addresses the social and emotional needs of students, which is a really important piece because for many students with learning challenges, for example, they also might struggle socially, and it seems that is integrated into boarding school environments to help students navigate relationships, particularly in a unique way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably one of the things we hear the most from our parents that their students were missing in their other environment, that their academic needs might be being met, but they might not have really had friends, or they had folks who were kind to them, but they weren't inviting them over to do things like when the school day was done or over the weekends. Where here, the friends are built into the community of the boarding school, so that there are all of, in our case, we have 200 students here who have a similar kind of profile. And now you have these kids that you can learn how to be friends with. How do you initiate conversation? How do you maintain friendship? How do you navigate when the friendship gets a little rocky? Because that certainly happens as a teenager. And that's just part of the programming. We have the staff who, with the knowledge to be able to help the students build those skills. And we just see such enormous growth. It's probably the area we see the most growth, because a lot of our students have not had the opportunity to really have true friends who are wanting to do things with them outside of kind of set initiatives by the school.
Right. And it seems that you're providing in that environment really an empathetic and a supportive community of students and educators that really support students with a diverse range of learning needs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the benefits of a boarding school environment is that we do have such a large staff team. So we have the teachers, we have the staff who are working in the dorms, we have a clinical team where I'm at, we have a health and wellness team, and all of these staff are working together to meet the needs of a student. So if somebody is working on social skills, that can happen during the school day. It can happen on the basketball court after school. It can happen in the dorm with their dorm staff. It can happen in a social group with a clinician. But it's just so integrated into the program that it's a piece of what's happening all the time. Like, we have a lot of incidental learning that in the moment something happens, you can teach about it and help the student navigate.
Right. And that incidental learning is so important, right? And then one of the other things you talked about that I think is important is the things that you are learning in the classroom, being able to have them generalize to real life. And it seems like that bridge is really important and really facilitated by this type of residential environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So as an example, to think about a student in a math class, and if you're working on consumerism skills and you are doing like mock purchases or something to learn your money management skills, you can take that experience from math class and then it translates into after school, you're with your dorm staff team, and now you're out in the community really doing it at a local store. And everybody's working on building this skill in a similar way. So it's a great way to learn, because you are getting the direct instruction during the school day, but you're also getting to really practice it in real life after school.
Right. So we focus a lot on neurodivergent youth, students who think and learn differently. I'd love for you to talk about the benefits of boarding or a residential program for neurodivergent youth.
Yeah. So I've thought a lot about this question, and I think the biggest thing I can say is it gives a community. And so as our students come in, a lot of times they've really struggled to have a community, or families have worked so hard to piecemeal different parts of programming together to get them that community. Students here coming to us with their learning challenges have that whole community built in, like I was talking about, so that they are getting their academic needs met, but they're getting their social needs met. They're being able to explore activity areas and interest areas. And like, we have some superstar runners at our school, and perhaps in a different setting, they never would have been able to have that experience. But here, the program is designed for them. So they're part of this large community. And then the parents get to be a part of the community as well. And they might not have had the support system and network that they had wanted elsewhere. But here, all of a sudden, you're connected to all of these families who've had the same experiences and have fought the same battles. And now you're all together as a support to each other.
That's really beautiful and really needed, because so many of these families that I've worked with feel so isolated, right? Because a lot of our academic environments aren't designed for students who learn and think differently. And so there is that struggle. But to find a place where you get to interact with parents who've also encountered similar struggles and find a place where your kids can thrive is so rewarding and wonderful.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I don't think it's an overstatement to say that we see our students have life-changing experiences, because a lot of times they've been stuck in kind of like a failure cycle of sorts at their school, and the little things are happening that are slowly kind of taking away self-esteem and taking away confidence. But you get into a community like a boarding school can provide, and all of a sudden everything is there to support the self-esteem and build the confidence. So you just see students blossom in ways I think it's hard for parents to even imagine before they get their child in that environment, to see what that kind of wraparound service does.
Right. And so for students who have, a learning profile like a dyslexia or an ADHD, is it a personalized program that's really tailored to their unique strengths and weaknesses? I'm thinking about interventions that we often recommend for dyslexia. Is that integrated into the program?
Yeah, so absolutely. I think one of the important pieces is that we are designed to individualize to every student's needs. So we have a diverse group of neurodivergent learners who come to us, and they have different strengths and areas of challenge. So we want to meet them where they're at. And I think that's very typical of programming, that you're looking to find those strengths and highlight them, but you're also looking to see where they're lagging and making sure you're building each student's individual lagging skills.
Right. And again, you have students with a number of different neurodivergent presentations, learning challenges, social and emotional struggles, or both. Who is a good candidate for boarding, and what is a good age for a student to transition to this type of learning environment? I think that's something that comes up often as well.
Yeah, and obviously it's a huge decision for families to choose to have your child live away from you. So it's something I think, families have to have really thought about it and be ready for it, and that it's always most successful when the whole family is ready together, because sometimes the students are really ready, or mom or dad aren't, or the other way around. So it's nice for the family to be on the same page and feeling like they're ready for this step. And then I would say anybody who's looking for that community, that I know there are folks out there who have amazing communities where they're at, and they might not need a boarding school in the same way as somebody who hasn't really been able to establish that community where they are. So it could be any age. We have students as young as 11 where we are. We actually see it. It's such a hard decision. I think the younger your student is, to send them away. But the benefits of allowing your student to get into programming that meets all of their needs early, I think, are just enormous. So thinking about it at a little bit younger age, although scary in the long run, the payoff, I think, is gigantic. And we also might be able to catch them before they've had a bullying experience, or they've had failures in school, or, the self-esteem starts to dip, because we often see families reaching out after they've been away at high school a couple years and things have started to go wrong. But imagining what the programming could be if they didn't experience that first, and you got them to the spot that really met all of their needs before any of that happened. I think that's another way to think about it.
Yes, absolutely. And, when I think about students who struggle with learning, thinking differences, processing issues, oftentimes there is this emphasis on the struggle and the challenge and making sure they get the support that they need. But with the personalized program, again, you also have an opportunity to allow them to develop and see their unique gifts, strengths, and talents. How is that integrated into residential programs? It seems like there's a better opportunity, because so many of our students are engaging in the interventions, the therapies after school, and that takes away from their ability to take part in artistic, activities or sports or things like that.
Yeah. So I would say in the case of the school where I work, we're working really hard to give all of our students anything a neurotypical student would have access to. So we have full sports programming. We have full chorus, drama, music programming. So sometimes I think it helps to imagine, like, what if it was your student up on stage singing a solo in the middle of your school show? Like that happens where we are, because that's part of the programming. And We support the students to do that, whether the best singer you've ever heard or maybe it's not, but they can still perform and be on stage. The same thing with sports. I think sometimes we see the little clips on TV where somebody's been given the opportunity to shoot one basket at the end of the game, and everybody's like, that's amazing. And it is amazing. But here, our team is all students like that, and they're shooting every basket in every game, and that's just part of their program. So I think it's kind of amazing for families to think about like your child having all of those kind of neurotypical experiences that maybe you were worried they weren't going to get to experience.
Right. And that is important for so many families, right? To normalize the educational experience for them and to have it be an environment where their child is motivated to learn, motivated to interact with peers. And for some students, they need a really a specialized and learning environment in order to thrive, to meet one that meets all their needs and gets them to really achieve their full potential.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we see students' confidence build and build and build, so a student we have in the first year might not be the person singing the solo up on stage, but they're participating. And then maybe the second year they're up there. So it's just amazing when you feel safe and your self-esteem is good, like what you can accomplish. And I know from experience that families are often surprised what levels their student can rise to because they've been told their whole life they can't do this, they can't do that. But in this kind of environment, we see everything they can do, and that builds on it. So as you do more things, your confidence grows, and then you're willing to try more things.
Absolutely. And again, that self-concept, self-esteem issue is so important because so many of the students who struggle with learning, when they're facing failures and they're having those struggles and maybe their needs aren't being completely met, they're at greater risk for social emotional difficulties, for anxiety and depression, having a low self-concept. And there really is a need to address the social emotional needs of students as well, and not have this piecemeal approach that solely focuses on the dyslexia or solely focuses on the executive functioning that's part of their ADHD symptomatology, because students are more than just their diagnosis.
Yeah. And when I think students are successful outside of school, it brings more success to the school day. That when you're feeling confident and you're in a classroom full of your friends, again, you're safe. You can trust the process a little bit more and maybe participate more. And suddenly you're getting more out of your reading class because you were successful on the soccer field the night before. It's just the way that it's all interconnected is so important.
And that safety piece, I love that you mentioned safety because that is so important for students learning. It's really hard to even access your thinking and the strengths that you have when you are nervous or frightened or don't feel safe in your learning environment. And so that piece is so important.
Yeah, I agree. We see a lot of students that come to us with a level of anxiety. And just like you said, there's at certain levels of anxiety, you can't even access what your brain is capable of doing. So by eliminating some of the anxiety and gradually more over time, we're allowing them to access all of their potential and not have it limited by being in a space that doesn't feel as safe as it could.
Yes. Now you are the residential program coordinator for the middle and high school at Riverview School. I would love for you to tell our listeners about Riverview School. What is the daily experience of a student? I know that can change from student to student and from grade to grade, but what does that look like? What does the day of a student at Riverview School look like? Could it look like?
So our students, we do have a day program as well, but most of our students here are boarding students. So they start their day in the dorm, practicing their good hygiene skills and having some fun with their friends before school. They head into school and they go to school till about 3:00, and then they get out. They participate in an after-school activity or some sort of club of their choosing. So they're getting to find their interest areas and meet those other kids who have the same interests. We do chores in the dorm to practice building those skills. Students work on room care and other activities of daily living. We do work on learning to cook simple snacks and meals. And then there's built-in time every night that's for socialization, where they invite each other over to each other's dorms and have visits with their friends. And then there's kind of wind down time at the end of the night, again, where we have a chance to focus on like building hygiene skills and getting ready and organized for the next day. And that's pretty much a typical day.
Right. It seems like that structure is so helpful to so many students as well.
Absolutely. It was hard for me not to give you the time that all of that happened, because it is so structured. That is a key component to what we do. We're very predictable in what we do, because that is easier for a lot of the students we work with to know exactly what to expect next. So there is a lot of structure and predictability to our program.
And that really helps with students who struggle with executive functioning, with that planning and organization, to have that plan in terms of what their day will look like, and also to have other students who are navigating the system and this day with them from beginning to end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we often think of peer pressure as a bad thing, but we see a lot of positive peer pressure here, in that, maybe somebody's reluctant to get that shower done, but all of their friends are doing it. So of course, I need to take care of my hygiene too. It's nice to see how the students can help each other grow along with the staff and the rest of the community that's helping them.
Absolutely. So they've got the learning support. They have opportunities to develop those social and emotional skills. They have a community of their peers. Families have a community as well. And sounds like they're also developing those activities of daily living skills, hygiene and chores and things like that. And they're having opportunities to go out into the community as well. How are families? So if parents are listening and they wonder, they have some reluctance. Any parent is going to have reluctance to have their child live away from them. What is the experience like for parents, and how are parents integrated into this program, these types of programs?
Yeah, so I know for Riverview, it's really important that parents are close partners with us. They're the experts on their children, so we need them. Their student might be living away, but they know their child better than anybody else. So we want to be able to call them up and hear from them and hear their thoughts about how things are going, and know what it is they're looking for their student to accomplish, so that we're working towards the same goals. We want our families to be able to stop into campus and come and visit, or take their student out for dinner or for the weekend, so that you're not totally apart. You still a lot of opportunities to come and be a part of your student's life, even if they're living away from school.
Yes, absolutely. And tell our listeners where Riverview is located, in case they're wondering about a visit for themselves and for their child.
We would love to have visitors. We're on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. We have a beautiful campus, state-of-the-art facilities, half-mile from the beach. It's really a pretty spot to be. And we have access to Boston as a city not far from us for special events. So it's a great location.
Wonderful. Sara, I'm so glad that you joined me to share this information. Like I said, parents are always looking for options for schools for their children, and the idea of residential learning programs often comes up. And I really appreciate you providing us with this information to help us better understand boarding and residential programs. If parents are listening, what is the best way for them to reach you if they want to know more about Riverview School?
So we have an amazing website, in my opinion, at riverviewschool.org. And if you access that website, there are all sorts of links that you can get to there. You can submit an inquiry. We also do virtual and in-person information sessions. The virtual sessions are every other Friday. And once a month, we have an in-person info session if you are in our area and would like to stop by and learn more about the school.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sara. I really appreciate you being here again and for sharing this great information. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here with you.
Thank you so much for listening. To learn more about Riverview School, be sure to check out the show notes. There you will find a link to their website. I also want to let you know that on their website, they indicate that financial aid is available to some families who demonstrate clear financial need. They also indicate that their tuition, fees, and related costs may be fully tax deductible as a medical expense. So be sure to check with your individual tax advisor regarding this deduction. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Diverse Thinking, Different Learning by Child Nexus. For more resources, visit us online at childnexus.com.